This week in our Wonderful Day in the Lord broadcast, we've been looking at Psalms of lament. Psalms in which the psalmist is sorrowful and in anguish, troubled, doubting, and they're being very open and honest with God. They're calling out to God. They're not challenging God, but they're calling out to God and crying for some form of help. But they're being very honest. They're not pulling punches. They're not saying what's not true. You know, God already knows what's in our hearts, right? So why not be open and honest before Him? And the Psalms guide us in that. They show us how to do that. So we're going to close out this week with one more Psalm of lament, Psalm 77. And once again, David is deeply depressed. You see at verse 1, I cry aloud to God, and He will hear me. In the day of my trouble, I seek the Lord. In the night, my hand is stretched out without wearying, and my soul refuses to be comforted. When I remember God, I moan. When I meditate, my spirit faints. So he's doing the right thing. He's struggling. He's crying out to God in his day of trouble. But the more he thinks about God, the more he meditates on God, the more his spirit faints. So he's struggling here. His meditation on God isn't helping. You might have been there before. You're trying your best to get right before the Lord, to maybe deal with an issue that's just troubling your heart, and you're thinking about God, you're praying to God, you're reading the Scriptures, but it's not getting any better. Well, then the psalmist here, Asaph, would be someone who you would identify with. Verse 4, you hold my eyelids open. I'm so troubled I cannot speak. I consider the days of old, the years long ago. I said, let me remember the songs of the night. Let me meditate in my heart. Then my spirit will make a diligent search. You can't sleep. You've been there, I'm sure. You're trying to sleep, but your mind won't shut off. Your heart is troubled. You're tossing and turning. You're considering the past, the days of old. You're trying to remember the things of God, but it isn't helping you. It just isn't helping you. Verse 7, will the Lord spurn forever and never again be favorable? Has His steadfast love forever ceased, and His promises at an end of all time? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has He in His anger shut up His compassions? So now he's starting to wonder if God is even going to rescue him at all. He's gone to the place now of questioning whether God will ever be gracious to him again. So this is a troubling time. He is down deep in the pit. He's not just having some surface issues. He's thought this through, he's meditated upon it, and he is beginning to question God in certain ways. What are we going to do about this? Well, verse 10, then I said, I will appeal to this, to the years of the right hand of the Most High. So he says, again, a turning point here. I'm going to do something about this. I'm at the very bottom of the pit. I'm going to do something about this. Here's what I will do, verse 11. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your wonders of old. Now he's going to go back again, and he's going to look at the past. And he's going to remember of other times in his life when he has been at the bottom of that pit. And he's going to remember how the Lord brought him through. This is a very good pattern we're given here. Go back when next time you're struggling, maybe you're struggling right now, and go back and remember a time maybe last year, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, when all seemed dark, when there seemed to be no hope, when everything was despair, and remember how the Lord somehow, some way brought you through that. Maybe He brought a person into your life. Maybe He brought some scripture into your life. Maybe He unraveled a certain circumstance in your life. Whatever that might be, the Lord graciously rescued you at that point. Remember that. Recall that. Go back to that. He goes on in verse 12. He says, I will ponder all your work and meditate on your mighty deeds. Your way, O God, is holy. What God is like, who is great like our God. So now he's going back and he's meditating, pondering not only what God has done, but on who God is. It's always important when we get to these places to not allow our feelings to circumvent that which is true. We may at this point question and feel as if God is not there for us. But the truth is God has not changed. He's never changed. He never can change. And he's always going to be there as the same God he's always been. And he's meditating on that. And he says, what God is like our God? Our God is holy. Verse 14, you are the God who works wonders. You have made known your might among the peoples. You with your arm redeemed your people and the children of Jacob and Joseph. Lord, you've done it before. I know you'll do it again because you have not changed, and your promises to us will never change. And then he finishes off the psalm. We won't read it, but he finishes the psalm by going back to the Exodus and saying, here at this moment when Israel was hopeless, God rescued them and brought them out and gave them freedom from Egypt. If God can do that, then our holy, gracious God can rescue us from whatever circumstances are ours. These are wonderful psalms, psalms that teach us how to lament, but psalms that teach us how we can find hope in God himself. I hope this week of reading these psalms and looking at them together have been helpful in your life. We'll see you next week.